All right, everybody, I think you can all hear us now. I'm going to go ahead and make it so you can see us. 3, 2, wait, where is it? There we go. What's up, everybody? They can see us. You're supposed to say hi or something. Like,
what's up?
What's up? Welcome to Theory Underground. I'm your host, David McCarricker. This is Michael Downs. We're about to be joined by Nance. But first, we're going to play our PSA. This is the PSA for the new year, basically. I might need to update it pretty soon now that Žižek gave us that shout out. I'm going to incorporate that into the PSA. But for now, this is where it's at. This is what it is. I'm going to roll it right now. Let's get it going. Be right back after this.
Thinking is super uncool, and that's why you should do it. It's just like almost anything that's like cool anymore. Yeah, it just sucks. And I think that's like what the underground movement has always been about, is just like seeing what's in the mainstream, being like it ain't there, and kind of like cobbling something together, you know? And yeah, it's a little mismatched, but that's like its beauty.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, where workers with earbuds can find genuine liberation from necessity.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation. Theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
We bring primary texts from leading lights of diverse fields to bear on topical issues and works popular in our current world. Theory Underground is a publishing house as well as lecture course and social media platform.
You've been reading Underground Theory.
Yes.
And
amazing book. I'm a publisher and an editor. I run a review of books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Jesus Christ.
Seriously.
This is a little experiment in what I, David McCarricker, can pull off without relying on the academy or the algorithmic dictates of the attention economy.
Usually, a good edited collection has good essays, but you only want to read a few. Every essay makes me want to read the other essays because you have a vision. Everyone that you invited for a reason. You weren't some fake publicist who's like, "Hey, so-and-so's a new book, have them on your show." No, you only talk to people because you've read shit by them, that you've thought about, that you think has value, even if you disagree. So I think that's what's amazing.
I believe that I am, like so many others, pioneering a future in which educators can form learning webs that will make learning as a way of life enjoyable and emancipatory. However, before these tools become accessible, they have to be experimented with. That's why I built my own website and app using nothing more than my own saved wages, 5 patrons, and some small classes of students over the last year. Of course, I also have had my wife Anne's moral support and help with accounting so that I don't get in trouble with the IRS or whatever. In less than a year, Theory Underground has already put out 8 courses, 2 books, one, my book, Time Energy, and the other, Underground Theory, which has over 30 contributors, including works written by students at Theory Underground, some of my fellow travelers, and colleagues in the broader universe of Underground Theory. Beyond the books and courses, though, you will also find interviews, reading exegetical reaction sessions, and live weekly events for working class autodidacts, independent researchers, and renegade academics. These include a variety of clubs and cohorts that meet on a weekly or monthly basis. If you want to get involved, there are 4 main subscription levels.
Think of it like a gym membership, but for your mind.
The point is to make learning, practice, and theoretical comprehension a way of life. Support at this stage of the operation is more crucial than ever because my savings were used up over the last year of getting this established. If I can triple my subscribers in the next 2 months, I can quit my gig at Amazon and focus on this work full time. All I need is a few more people at each of the levels or a couple big time patrons who just want to see it happen. Right now I am doing a patron and site subscriber drive, so excuse the commercial. But if you end up really liking what goes on at this channel, consider signing up soon. If you cannot afford it, but want to get involved with some of the stuff behind the paywall, I have made a financial aid scholarship you can sign up for here in the description. Quick side note, some people ask about the profit motive. At this point, I have not actually made a return on any of my investment in terms of the amount of time, energy that I put into things, the amount of savings I've actually put into things, the opportunity cost of the work that I'm doing as opposed to the other kinds of things that I could be doing for money. But more importantly, I don't actually make enough to pay for my cost of living. The goal is to make enough for my cost of living. And then once that is achieved, everything over that amount is going to go towards expanding the operation to the point where I can hire Michael Downs, aka Mikey of The Dangerous Maybe, to be a full-time researcher and part-time teacher at Theory Underground. All right, so with that aside, I just want to say also, if you are a worker with earbuds, what's up? I see you. I work at Amazon part-time, and everything I do is for my past self who used to work there full-time. Most workers with earbuds couldn't care less about theory, but I do believe a working class intellectual revolution could grow out of the underground theory scene. My hope is that what I have built here will contribute to making the scene something more than just a scene, and you into something more than just a scene kid. We're trying to make this into a real intellectual milieu capable of leading a way forward beyond the imminent crises facing humanity. But for that, we need thinking now more than ever.
Start thinking.
I hope that you either will or have enjoyed the program, and also make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and leave this playing in the background all the time while you're doing other things.
Playing long-form Theory Underground content in the background while you do things has, in the near future, been scientifically proven to emancipate minds from the functional illiteracy imposed on workers by the structural stultification of time energy. This is achieved by reterritorializing circumspective concern.
Also, to some degree, it is for the algorithm.
Think of it like a gym membership, but for your mind!
And we're live, baby. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. How's it going? Mikey, Nance, how you guys doing?
Doing good.
Chilling.
Doing good.
Got Nance here in the nick of time, man. In the nick of time.
Yeah, man.
Time's
Like
been
I
a little.
entered a time portal, dude. I thought it was like 3 PM and I was being lazy and
Yeah, it's relatable. Time's been really weird for me recently. What's up, everybody? How's it going in the stream? Can you all hear us okay? I just want to check in on you all, make sure that things are functioning on your side. The audio is all coming through clear. But let's get it going here. Mikey, what is this all about?
Okay, so as many of you already know who follow the channel, Dave and I are trying to make a, we'll get into it. We keep calling it a debate, but we'll clarify in a minute, but a debate between Slavoj Žižek and Nick Land. And most of us who are into underground theory, we don't need to have it explained to us why this should happen, but there's a lot of people who follow Žižek who don't know who Nick Land is. There's a lot of people who follow Nick Land who I'm sure they have heard of Slavoj, but they probably don't have a real robust understanding of the intricacies of his philosophy. And so we're doing this video to explain why we think it's important for these two guys to have a discussion. Less of a debate, more of a discussion. A meeting of the minds, right? And while most people probably wouldn't associate these two at all, there's a lot of overlap and there's a lots of points of discussion, dialogue to be had between their two stances, their two philosophies. And really, for me, this has always been my, like, if I could choose to see two people, two philosophers who are living right now have a discussion, it's Žižek and Land. And so I've wanted this for a long time because I got exposed to Land's philosophy years ago because I took classes at the New Center for Research and Practice. Most of them there were accelerationists. They were left accelerationists, but profoundly influenced by Nick Land. And so I was getting introduced to Land's thought about a decade ago, right? And it wasn't something that immediately resonated with me, but I was picking up bits of it here or there. And over the years, land and the accelerationist tradition as a whole has grown in its influence on me. All the while, I've been kind of a card carrying Žižekian. And so I've always been thinking about land in terms of Žižek in terms of land. On top of that, land is probably the most famous and influential student, though not a direct student, but indirect student of Deleuze and Guattari. Žižek is the most famous student, indirectly, of Hegel and Lacan. Well, Deleuze and Guattari were fundamentally opposed to Hegel and Lacan. And so the very fact that you got Land and you got Slavoj, both of whom are students of really important thinkers that have inspired us, right? And yet they were at odds with each other. This lends itself to a great discussion because in a way, it's like through them, it's like we're channeling D&G and channeling Hegel and Lacan. And if there's two people who are prepared to one to defend D&G and one to defend Hegel and Lacan, it's these two. And so on top of just the two of them discussing, it's almost like these other four influential great thinkers are speaking through them too. And so that's why, at least, I mean, and there's a lot more we'll go into here, but that's roughly why I always wanted to see these two talk. And for years, for all of us who were doing underground theory or online theory, whatever, however we want to talk about it back then, we were all very much interested in both of them because you got to realize both of them were they weren't taken seriously in professional academic philosophy circles. That's another thing. Now, Slavoj, I mean, they would give him more credit because he's still some kind of leftist. Land, because he went neo-reactionary, he's absolutely ostracized from the discussion. But nonetheless, they have a lot in common in that regard. And so for us who found both of them to be incredibly interesting, you know, you notice that, well, Žižek's never actually said anything about land. And there was a point I was going through all of Slavoj's books and in the PDFs and searching for Nick Land. There was nothing. And I did the same with Land's work, nothing on Žižek. Land has mentioned Slavoj 3 or 4 times throughout the years on Twitter, maybe more. And I can't find the tweets or whatever, but there are about 3 or 4 of these tweets that Land put out where he mentions Žižek. And that was it. And so with how much they have in common, the points at which they fundamentally disagree, I've just always held this up as my ideal dream philosophical discussion to get to witness. I mean, there's other ones that obviously we can't, but like I would love to see a discussion between Hegel and Kierkegaard, right? That'd be an all-time great there for me. You know, I think it would be fun to see Sartre and Heidegger talk about, you know, division 1 and of being in time and the existentialist dimension and see what they have. So there's these ideal philosophical discussions. And for me, I've always gone, this one could happen. They're both alive. Like this is a tragic missed opportunity in my eyes. It's like, and I think we all want to facilitate this, Dave. I know you do, because you're always talking about these contradictions. We want influential thinkers who have spent their lives refining their understanding of specific topics to come together and have a discussion. It's and look, some of them might not go great, some of them will be epic, but I think it's a shame that this doesn't happen more often. So recently, Žižek had a discussion with Peter Sloterdijk. I haven't had a chance to see it, but just knowing that it happened really made me happy. I'm like, see, that there's no reason that these incredibly influential thinkers shouldn't at least once in their life get on stage or get on stream and talk to each other about core aspects of their philosophy. For those of us who are aspiring to be thinkers, those types of meetings of the minds are absolute jewels to us. And so, long story short, you and I, we met Žižek in 2018. Žižek's had a greater influence on our specific philosophical stances than Land has, but that does not mean Land hasn't come to inspire us in certain ways. Really, we're big on the fact that he doesn't shy away from, to talk like him, trafficking with the future. This is something we think is incredibly important, is to cultivate visions of the future, alternate futures, right? And then the whole notion of acceleration itself really resonates with us, and whether we agree or disagree on this or that point, like, it's at this point I cannot think but in Landian terms when it comes to certain things concerning capitalism, artificial intelligence, time, mega cities. There's a whole list of these things, right? And so we've been fortunate in the last year to interview Slavoj Žižek twice. And the first time, you've been posting little clips from this, but the first time I made up my mind, I'm like, okay, no one's ever asked him about Nick Land. I'm going to do it. And he ended up talking for 30 minutes, and he said he had never really heard of Land. And then I kind of gave him a quick rundown of the basics of Land's philosophy. And then based on what I said, he kind of riffed for a while. Well, about a week and a half later, maybe 2 weeks, something like that, all of a sudden he comes out with a new article that he publishes at Compact, which is his critique of Nick Land. He went, did some research, and put together his thoughts on what he had read from Land in that short interim of time. Now, it's interesting because Land also has published at Compact. So both of them have published articles there. So that's interesting. But what I did was I went on Twitter, and Land was actually on Twitter at the time. And for those of you who don't know, Land is very infamous on Twitter. He posts a lot of stuff that people on the left don't like. There's ways to say he's somewhat of an edgelord or a troll, but there's also stuff that he posts that is, you know, him clarifying or extending on his philosophy, and those are really helpful. But at the time, he takes these hiatuses. He'll be on Twitter for 6 months, and then he's gone for 6 months, and God knows what he's doing in the meantime. But he's in and out of Twitter. So right when Slavoj released his article, I found out about it immediately, and so I went on there and I think I tagged him or something and let him know that Slavoj had published something about him, and he was real interested in it. And I got him the article because he couldn't access it for whatever reason, and he said thanks and went on his way. And so I was expecting for him maybe in a week or so to say something about it, but after that he vanishes off of Twitter. And this is back in early September, and he hasn't been back on Twitter since. Well, last week you and I interviewed Slavoj for a second time, and he didn't have as much time to talk this time. But at the end, I brought up Land again and told him, hey, next time we talk, because he says he'll talk to us again in a month or so. So next time I want to go back into this Land thing. And, you know, you went and wrote this article after you talked to us. And he said, you know, his discussion with us influenced him to write the article. And I told him, I sent it to Land. We've all been waiting for him to respond. We hope he responds. But as of now, we haven't heard anything from him. And so I over, what was it, the month of September, I taught a 4-week course, an introductory course on Nick Land's work at Theory Underground. And we were really hoping we wanted to get Nick to come on and do a discussion or let us interview him, whatever, for the course. And you contacted him, no response. Okay, fine, cool. But at this point, in this recent talk with Žižek, we told him about this stuff, and I told him that, look, it's been my dream for a long. I know he debated Jordan Peterson, and that was a big deal. But personally, I don't really care about Peterson or whatever. But I do care about Land's thinking, and it's kind of a dream of mine, and not just mine. Like, okay, I'm the one who I know has talked the most about this for years, but it's one of those things. When I say we, I really think people who haven't even consciously thought about it, still, this is something they want. They don't know they want it, but they want it. And the point, I know this because anybody who's seen the memes we've been posting about this, everybody is dying for this to happen, right? So it's something they wanted, even though they didn't know they wanted. But I knew I wanted it. And Slavoj said, let's do it. Give me 2 months. And because of that, he means he wants to really research. He really wants to read Land and have a far better understanding of his work. So he wants 2 months to prep for this discussion. All we need is for the Lemur King himself to agree to it, to have a discussion. And look, I get it. Like, I could understand how, like, we'd sit here, and if somebody just said, oh, you guys are just leftists, we would say, hold on, like, pump the brakes. But for Land, he's immediately going to view us as leftists or transcendental miserabilists, as he puts it. We don't necessarily, it's like, okay, we want to qualify that and go, hey, hold on, man. But we're certainly not neo-reactionaries. And so that's the point. It's going to be immediately obvious to him that we're not rightist. And so the very fact that we there's a lot of leftist ideals, and we're all about the emancipation of time energy, which is very much a humanist project. Let's face it. These are things that he's going to associate. We're all about universalist politics. He's against that. He doesn't care about the emancipation of human beings. He cares about the emancipation of capital. There's lots of reasons why he is going to say those guys over there are leftists, right? But the thing is, but we're not typical leftists for the very fact we want to have him on to have a discussion with him. Your typical leftists would say we're absolutely forbidden to even talk to him. Most of them don't even want us to mention his name. Fuck that. I don't give a fuck. Like, yes, now this is just me speaking for myself. Yes, I hold to certain leftist ideals or ideals that have been associated with the left, but I also am influenced by Nick Land. I'm not into his politics. I don't go for the Mencius Moldbug, neo-cameralism stuff. I don't go for the Dark Enlightenment stuff. I see points in that text where I see where he's coming from, and I see certain points he makes there that have a certain legitimacy, or I get why he would say that. Other points I fundamentally disagree with. Nevertheless, I want to see Slavoj and this guy talk. And so that is what we're trying to make happen. And so, look, we're known online, Dave and I, like, we're the young Žižekians, right? With Nick and Andrew too. And so I get it. He could view it and go, well, you've got these two guys. It's very clear that they love Slavoj. They call themselves young Žižekians. Why the fuck would I go over there and talk to them? This is almost like I was watching Cobra Kai the other night. It's like, why am I going to fight at your dojo? Right. But the point of the matter is, I would say, look, Nick, you're going to get a total fair shot. It'll be neutral. We are invested in just facilitating you two having a great discussion. And over the years, you've said stuff about Slavoj on Twitter. So on some level, he's been on your mind. And I know now you were on his. And I'm just saying, let's be honest. You guys aren't getting any younger. who knows how long.
Dude, like look at the pictures on this. Like, I'm using all these old pictures of Nick Land. Like, if you look at the thumbnails, like Land looks young still, but it's like I had two choices for photos. I had these pictures where he's all young, or I had like these really bad quality photos from like a Zoom call where he looks older. And I was just like, I'm just gonna go with like the face everybody remembers, because not everybody has seen like these interviews that are more recent or whatever. But yeah, no, they're getting on, they're getting along. And Žižek is always reminding us that he's almost dead. Like, I mean, like half the time we talk to him, he's like life is shit, you know, and then he's like goes into how he's like gonna die. Like when we saw him, he had like 3 surgeries that year, like in 2018, and it's like he's only gotten older since then. So
yeah, and so look, I mean, both of you, and speaking to you, Nick, like you got to realize, whether you like it or not, you have influenced a generation of leftist thinkers, especially with your stuff in the 90s in Fang Noumena. There's lots of people that you inspired with those texts. Obviously, you're still incredibly relevant in the world of political theory, because the Dark Enlightenment and all of that, you were a major player in that over on the right. And so Slavoj, obviously, he's still this defender of communism in some way, shape, or form. And yet both of you see many of the same problems. And you went right. He went back to a kind of fidelity to the communist idea. Yet both of you are seeing the same issues. And for you two to be able to sit there and discuss, like, why did you go this way? Like, this is just stuff that people who have been students of both of yours, we're dying to see this discussion, right? And it's one of those things that if you two got together and talked, like I said, it's not a debate. There's nothing. It's not like anybody wins. And that's the whole thing. Yes, we're using the Land versus Žižek thing because it's hyperstition. Like this debate is a hyperstition to us, to use Land CCRU terminology, which is to say, everybody would say this is a make-believe fiction that's impossible to make happen. It's impossible this would ever actualize itself. And so part of what we're trying to do is use Land's hyperstitional praxis to make this fiction a reality, right? And so what we're doing, the way we're approaching trying to hype this up, that's the Land influence on us, right? Not the Žižekian influence. And so that's where we're at with it. Now, what I can do, I want to run through this list of these topics that I would love to see them discuss. But before I go to that, if you guys want to say anything or...
Yeah, we got some stuff. I definitely want to hear some of Nance's own reasons, because I know that he's also been influenced by these thinkers and everything. But real quick, I just want to say a couple things, and then I'll come back to a couple other things once I have the screenshots that I want to share. Like, first of all, the interest here is profound. These are the 4 videos that we put up, or that I put up here in the last week. You see, like 3 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 1 day ago. And each of these clips is like 10 minutes long, and these are from the 2 conversations that we had with Slavoj. If you go down here, this one here, this is our first conversation we had with him 3 months ago, probably September 2nd, I think, and it was the launch of the Theory Underground US and Canada book tour for Underground Theory and for Time Energy, right? And so Žižek joined us. That was the first time he had ever actually joined us for something. And that was the conversation where, among many other things, we actually got him to talk about this. And so I've clipped those parts of that conversation and posted them up here. And then I also clipped the parts from the most recent conversation with him, which was 6 days ago. That was the conversation that was the sequel to the Theory Underground 1 year anniversary, right? The 1 year anniversary stream was on December 6th. And, you know, it's too bad he couldn't have joined us for the actual 1-year anniversary, but we had to do a sequel event kind of to accommodate to his schedule because he was traveling on the day that we were doing the anniversary thing. And actually, so it's kind of crazy. Like, he was traveling to do this thing, and then he wasn't actually allowed to talk about any of the stuff that he wanted to talk about. And so the conversation we ended up having a lot with him when he did come on last week was this conversation about censorship, where there are current things that you are just not supposed to talk about, or if you talk about them, you are not supposed to be very nuanced about them, right? Something Middle East, something stuff happening. I'm not going to use any of the words that might trigger the thing because I don't want to get my stuff taken down. At the end of the day, I just want everyone to know, yes, we support and condemn the current thing. Absolutely. Don't worry about that. We are on the side we need to be to not be kicked off of the CIA's platform. We're here for you guys. Whatever we got to do, we're here for you. Anyway, setting that aside, I'm just going to play the clip where he said that he's going to do it, though. So this is it right here. Oh, I got to start it over. This is just a short, like a YouTube short or whatever, but here we go. It also has me elaborating a little bit on why I think this needs to happen. And so there we go.
To be honest, I mean, my dream, look, you had your debate with Jordan Peterson, but for all of us who do underground theory, the dream discussion or debate, whatever we want to call it, is between two.
Let's do it. Just give
All right.
me like some 2 months, I would say, something like that.
And that's
All right.
all. So, I mean, Dave, you messaged Land, you emailed them about, talking to us. And so this is, it would just be so important.
At this point, Slavoj Žižek and Nick Land are the two most famous living thinkers of the 21st century, and they have a lot in common, but they also have super substantial differences that are based in real philosophical distinctions, that ones that few people actually can wrap their heads around. But Mikey has taught classes on both of them, and he's working on sequels to those courses for both of them, so I think he's going to be a good MC for this. So I hope Nick will get back to me once he gets back to the internet after his break.
I can't hear you, Dave.
I said that was kind of crazy, recording that while at the Amazon warehouse. I tried like 4 different times to do that recording and just get it up, but it kept messing up, like something about my face. So I ended up just filming the floor as I walked. Anyway, look, there is nobody else in the world who has taught an introductory course to both Lacan and Žižek on the one side, and on the other side, Nick fucking Land. Except Mikey's the one. Mikey's the one. And, I've said it for a long time. Theory Underground, one of the big points of Theory Underground is to be able to free Mikey from wage labor just so he can teach. The fact that he's already been like tracking with these thinkers and arguing with them and writing through them for a decade, it's pretty much like he's qualified in my opinion. And someone in the chat there on the Twitch side was just saying that they saw the video on YouTube but didn't know who Nick Land was, so they skipped it. And fair enough. I kind of had a sense for who he was, and I'd read a couple articles. I'd mostly only read, like I'd heard a little bit of Meltdown, like on a YouTube video once, like a recording of it. And then I'd read the Dark Enlightenment, and I remember just being like, I don't care, whatever. And that's my general, that's my default. Like, that's still how I feel about Badu and Adorno. I just don't care. Someone has to make me care. No one's taken the time to make me care. My friend Michał in Katowice, Poland, is working on making me care about Adorno. But it's like, you got to actually teach me the course. You got to actually like give me the introductory talk. You got to actually show me why it matters. When I go and I look on my own and I spend a while there and then I walk away from it going, I don't see what this actually does. Well, it's not going to work. So like, if you want to ask me like, what does Heidegger do? What does Marx do? What does Lacan do? What does Levinas do? I can sit here and even before I had really wrestled with, like their greatest works, I could sit there and I could still tell you like, oh, well, Levinas is the thinker of ethics and morality, and he's the thinker of the other, and he's the thinker of hospitality. I could have told you that. Well, with Lacan, he's the thinker of lack. He's the thinker of drive and desire. Like I could talk about that even without having studied them yet. And Heidegger, he's the thinker of being, or to go with Sheehan, the sense of being. He is the thinker of the deconstruction of modernity. He is the most radical critique of everything that we take for granted. I could have said those things before I took on the challenge of actually reading them, but then someone's like, if I try to say what Adorno's up to or what Badiou's really doing, it's like, I don't know. I can tell you a little bit about the event in negative dialectics, but it's not enough for me to feel like the urge or like the motivation to really like work through that body of work. Well, it was the same way with Nick Land. And it's because of time energy fragility, right? I do not have large energy infused, repeatable blocks of time every day of the week that I can just reliably depend upon to put towards giant projects like, getting my chops on any one of those other thinkers, right? And so when I'm trying to think like bang for my buck, where do I put my time in, my relative energy that I barely can scrape together outside of work? There are certain thinkers where it's like, I see why I go with that when I'm trying to understand the situation we are in today, right? I see why I go with these thinkers. I don't see why I go with, say, Nick Land. I don't see why I go with, say, Badiou. I don't see why I go with Adorno. And so thinking about like this sort of time energy reductionist and time energy fragility based reaction to a thinker is always where I come from. And when people come at me with like, oh yeah, well, I'm into this thinker, and they just assume I should care about that thinker, that's some privileged PMC bullshit that I'm just like, why should I care? Like, even if you could convince me why you care, but why should I care? And I think that any educator should be able to do that. And since most of these people are coming from academia, they ostensibly should be able to tell me why they care. Well, anyway, Mikey is always that guide for me. Like, you've been able to sell me on a bunch of thinkers because you'll be like, yeah, I've been really going down this rabbit hole. And I'm just like, cool. All right. And then like we talk a couple weeks later and you're like, yeah, I'm still down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, cool. All right. And then eventually you drop some knowledge bombs on me and you're like, this is what he's doing. This is what he's doing. This is what he's doing. No one's doing this. No one's doing this. No one thought this. No one's had this influence in this way, this way, this way, this way. No one. And so it's like, oh, okay. Land actually is necessary as like a prerequisite for thinking about the future. In any sort of serious way. And of course, like there's other people kind of from that milieu who are doing stuff like, say, Reza Negrestani, right? And you're gonna lift up your copy right there, aren't you? Yeah, you are. Hey, you got yours there, Nance? Is it handy?
Nobody gets it that I have gone through hell to get a physical copy of this book for whatever reason. And okay, I don't care. I'm gonna call them out on the stream. So Urbanomics, they put out Fang Numina, right? They put out a bunch of these influential texts like this. They keep posting all these pictures on Facebook of all the new copies of Fang Numina they printed, and I'm like, can we get some Intelligence and Spirit copies? Because you can't even get a used copy on Amazon. It's one of the hardest texts to get a hold of right now. Luckily, one popped up the other day, and I got it, and it's the one right here. But I just lucked out with that. But
it's not easy. It's not easy to get.
This book is a must read for anybody who's interested in land, artificial intelligence, etc. It's really incredible. And so, Urbanomic, I don't know what the deal is with you and Reza, because you still have Cyclonopedia. You have the graphic novel that Reza did. You still are publishing that. Where the hell are the new copies of this book? We need them. Help the world and publish more. Come on. Get it together.
Also, I just want to.
Maybe there's legal shit going on, but
I also just want to thank them for sending me this copy when they did. I actually won.
Does yours have a map in it?
Where? At the very beginning or something?
So I'm not sure what the deal is. Somebody told me that one of Reza's books, at least some edition of it, came with a map. And I thought it was Intelligence and Spirit, like a fold-out colored map. But I don't. Maybe it was Cyclonopedia. Either way, neither one of my copies have a fucking map in it. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe this map doesn't exist. But
there's a bunch of there's diagrams in it, but there's not
that's not it. Like it's almost like
it's not a centerfold.
Like an old school Nintendo like instruction manual or a Nintendo poster that would unfold, right? It somehow, I guess it came. I've been told it came with a map like that. One of his books, but again, maybe this is all bullshit. I don't know. But I just wanted to check. So neither of you have a map in your copy.
No.
Okay.
No map. So, okay, most people don't know who Land is or Regrostani. This is all very niche stuff unless you're super into accelerationism and thinking about futures and AI.
Well, if anybody if you don't know who Land is, Dave and I, when I was teaching the course, we decided that the first lecture in the course, we were going to make it public, because what I tried to do in that lecture is really not just treat Land as a meme, which, he wants human extinction and he's all about artificial intelligence. That's true in a sense, but Land's a real philosopher, and his first book that he actually released is called The Thirst for Annihilation. And in that book, it's a book on Bataille, but it's not like a typical secondary source, like one like William Pollitt would write, for example. It's like Land philosophizing with Bataille, right? And it's probably, if Bataille could read any of the secondary material written on him, I feel very confident that this would be his favorite book out of all of them. Anyway, Land in this book develops what his philosophy that he calls libidinal materialism. And what he's doing is retroactively creating his own kind of philosophical lineage. Goes back to Kant, but he has a love-hate relationship with Kant. But from Kant, it goes into Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Freud. He has a love-hate relationship with Freud. He basically, look, and I use these terms somewhat loosely, but he loves Schopenhauer, has certain disagreements, loves Nietzsche, he loves Bataille, he loves Deleuze and Guattari. Those are his main guys, right? He has a love-hate relationship with Kant and Freud, and then he hates Hegel, he hates Derrida, he hates Husserl, Heidegger, Aquinas, right? He's very clear on this. But the thing is, what I did in that first lecture is try to lay out this whole philosophical context of him developing his fundamental ontology, not in the Heideggerian sense, but his basic metaphysics, which is fundamentally rooted in how he conceptualizes the Kantian concept of noumena, things in themselves. So the point is, I said all that to say, if you don't know who Nick Land is and you want a basic introduction or rundown, go check out that lecture for the first course. It's on the Theory Underground channel.
I just shared the link to it in the chat. I also share, so that just went out to both Twitch and YouTube. For now, y'all can kind of bracket that and just kind of just give us the benefit of the doubt for at least the rest of this conversation, that it is a prerequisite. Where I was going when I brought up Reza Negrestani, as well as others, Sadie Plant, etc., who are in this milieu, the idea is that if you want to think about the future, if you want to think about AI, if you want to think about where things are really going, if you want to think about accelerationism, if you want to disagree with it, if you want to fine tune it, modify it, whatever, you're going to be out of your element if you don't spend some time with Land. And so a lot of them at this point have rejected him, have written their own critiques of him. I mean, you can read all of Intelligence and Spirit as like this really hardcore critique. It's like this profound functionalist sort of pragmatic Hegelian comeback to.
And can we just say, just briefly, look, long story short, Nick Land believes that capitalism is artificial intelligence. He said that directly. And what he means by that is he thinks that the very structure of capital accumulation. What Marx's formula is MC(M prime). You don't have to go into it. It's just a kind of a gloss. But point is, Nick Land thinks that baked into the kernel, the core of capitalism, is the inevitable seed of the realization of super intelligence, of the singularity, right? Of the, he calls it the techno-capital singularity. So for him, he thinks that capitalism, given enough time, is necessarily or inevitably bring about super intelligence. Reza's going to have some critique of that, and that's what you're getting at with what you were just saying.
Yep. So bringing it all back around to this basic idea about dialectics, I'm just going to put this on the screen. I dropped two batches of memes recently, and these are kind of responses to a variety of comments that I have received over the last couple of months. I get people saying, wait a minute, the way you phrase that like makes it sound like you're not really a leftist, or hey, why are you reading these people who aren't leftists, or oh, like I see why you're into this thing, but why are you doing a course, why are you teaching a course on Heidegger, which I am, or oh, I see why you're doing this and that and the other, but why do you have a course on Nick Land? And then on this one, there's this one position that's like, oh, well, of course, they're just red browns. They're trying to synthesize like the like sort of like communists and Nazis or some shit. And it's like, that is not the fucking point. Also, first of all, I don't consider Nick Land to be able to really fit into that category. But also, I'm as critical.
He hates fascism, despite everybody's problems with him as a neo-reactionary. He is an incredibly anti-fascist thinker. Even though he ended up being neo-reactionary, and we could go into that whole thing, it would sidetrack it, but I'm just saying.
Right.
Land has always, from day one, been very clear that he's anti-fascist, and he still maintains that to this day, though being a neo-reactionary. Right.
So I've got that meme where we're going to say it's the mom holding up the girl, and then there's that other kid who's like drowning, and then underneath the water, there's like the skeleton, right? Well, the kid that's being upheld is thinkers who took the right side of history according to our interpretation of general cultural oppositions. The mama holding up that kid is academic theory and the left side of the attention economy. The kid who's drowning is anyone perceived as potentially problematic. The skeleton is genuine contradictions, negativity, and problems that cannot be understood from a strictly partisan reading of history's greatest thinkers. That is what I think. And at the time that I really wanted to take a step back from political activism and organizing and get a theoretically grounded perspective on the situation by working through a lot of these different irreconcilable contradictions that cannot be simply synthesized in some sort of, well, whether it's red-brown thing or whether it's some like leftist sublation of this, that, and the other from these guys, there was nowhere to turn to. Theory Underground is what I built in the last 3 years because there was nowhere to get that education. My role is as an educator. That's why when people are like, but aren't you a leftist? I go, functionally, no. Like now from a certain perspective, people can say, well, functionally, yeah, because you're platforming so many of them. You hang out with so many of them. Like, look who's on your stream all the time. It's like, yeah, but it's who's going to work with me. I email a lot of people and then there's the people that actually work with me. And I don't know. I can't change that, but there's also obviously a disproportionate number of fundamental contributions to theory that do come from a left, if not communist kind of perspective. And ultimately I owe a tremendous debt to Marx and his work with critique of political economy. All of that said, I do have like something, I've idealized some kind of ideal. I've got this ideal of thinking dialectically and working through contradictions, right? And so right here I have the guy who's sweating because he's looking at the two red buttons and he's trying to figure out which one to click, right? And on the first one it says only reading leftists who claim to be doing dialectics. The other button says reading dialectically. That's the thing, is dialectical contradictions do not just happen within one of these perceived sides, right? And so bringing it back to this idea of bang for your buck when it comes to your time and your energy, because none of us really have large energy infused repeatable blocks of time that can be harnessed towards these kinds of projects. I say you got to pick a couple of the most profound, most difficult, most expansive, but also radically singular perspectives from the history of philosophy, and you got to ground out in them. You can't just like, you're not going to get that if you're like, oh, I read Marx and Rosa and Lukács and Adorno, and then you just go down with a few more like leftists. I'm sorry, what? You're just talking about a bunch of Soviet people. Like, what is the, and they're all thinking within that milieu. That's great. But what about like the fundamental critique of modernity itself? Like the deconstruction of modernity, the most profound in the history of thinking itself. That is Heidegger. You can't get out of that. You have to tarry with that, right? Oh, you don't like his politics. Well, I don't like anybody's politics. I don't like Žižek's politics. I don't like Land's politics. I don't like Heidegger's politics. I don't like Burnham's politics. I don't like, you just go down the line. I don't like anybody's politics. I don't trust anybody's historical narratives, right? I have suspended my assumptions when it comes to all of this stuff. Anyway, I'm not going to sit here and actually show you all of the memes in this stash. I just wanted to kind of give you all this sense that that is where I'm coming from, and that that's ultimately what this is about. My role is as an educator. It's about creating a space where the genocide of voice that is happening everywhere, the genocide on thinking that is happening everywhere, can be instrumentally countered, and that we can actually create some kind of a place for the theory scene that is currently, oh, there's Lacanians over here, there's Marxists over here, there's Landians over here, whatever, to stop just being like a bunch of scene kids going to shows and only hanging out with the cool kids in their perception. No, it's about going beyond that into some kind of a more robust intellectual milieu, and that's going to take years of development and thinking and trial and error, but this kind of getting the contradictions to actually air is a prerequisite. That's my position. With that, Nance, yeah, what do you got as far as your reasoning for all of this?
I really only started caring about Žižek in the last few years, thanks to Mikey, for the most part. He's obviously very important. I really like Hegel, but I never cared about Lacan, and I never had anything at all to do with Lacan outside of or before Mikey's explication of Lacan. And I do care about it now, and I do care about Žižek. I still care about Žižek more for his Hegel than Lacan, because I think people who like Lacan, I'm not even going to say that. I think it's easy to overdo it with Lacan. There's a lot there. I think we should take what works, take what matters, take what's important, and run with it. But not stay there and turn everything into, oh, let's do this Lacanian analysis on things. And I'm not saying that's what Žižek does, but I've liked Nick Land forever. I like his I like his view on capital. I think of capital similarly to how he thinks about it. I think I have a more radical view of capital than Nick Land does. And I like the aesthetics of it too. Like, it's edgy. We all live on the internet now. We want to, I don't know, get off on being edgy. But I think they're both so heavily memed for a reason. Like, that speaks about what they're saying, what they're doing. That speaks about the way people interact with their thought, with their theories. Like, we are in this moment now where everything is memeified. Everything has been flattened out, and bringing the two of them together would be an exercise in actually giving dimension back to their thought. And actually, like, for someone to be able to say, someone like me, who publicly for a very long time would say, yeah, I am a Marxist, I am a communist, but I like Nick Land a lot, to be able to have a place to like flesh that out and lay it out all on the table. And not of course, we're going to have to market it as, oh, the debate, Land versus Žižek, because this is the internet. This is where this stuff lives. So it has to be spectacularized in a sense. But the debate itself isn't, I guess, the main event. The main event is their thought coming together and opening up a new space for us to be able to have conversations and draw shit out with each other as well. And really kind of creating a space where we can get back to something instead of just doing memes on the internet. Instead of, oh, we're just here to score points. I'm here to out edgy. I'm here to out edge bro you, or I'm here to out, postmodern Lacanian, whatever it is you like. No, there's a lot going on. These guys both represent something that gets at the essence of our current situation. And for people to run away from that kind of demonstrates what they're really doing. They're not thinking, they're like congratulating themselves. It's insane that actual thinkers would say, don't do that. Why are you doing this? Mikey, you need to justify what you're doing. That blows my fucking mind that it's actually happening. But it needs to happen. It does need to happen. And I'm stoked.
Well, and part of it for me is that because Žižek's so important to me and because Land has influenced me so much, one of the things I've always had to do with both of them. All right, Chomsky made that statement about Žižek where he's like, I've read him. I don't think there's any real theory there. Right? I've always had to combat this claim that Žižek doesn't have any real theory. He writes in a way that he's very clear, but it's hard to follow how he's getting from point A to point B to point C to point D, right? And it takes a lot of work to actually be able to follow his train of thought. But once you unlock that, oh yeah, he's got theory. The point is, it's hiding in plain sight. They don't understand that when he's making these connections between Hegel and Lacan, those are not just well-established connections. That is him producing his theory, right? Okay, so it's different than him creating a whole bunch of new terms like D&G did, right? If he had done that, his theory would be much more recognizable as an original theory than it is. The point is, he makes connections between Lacanian and Hegelian terms, and the reader kind of just thinks, oh, those are just connections well established. No, he's forging those connections as he moves through his various examples from politics and pop culture. Those connections are Žižek's original theory, but again, it's hiding in plain sight. With Land, he's really, Land doesn't have a theory. It's all this wild kind of theory, poetics of the future, and it's sci-fi poetry and all bull fucking shit. The guy's a real serious philosopher with an original metaphysics. It's just people don't read the first chapter, especially of Thirst for Annihilation. They don't read these other texts. Everybody thinks it's just Meltdown and then maybe the Dark Enlightenment at this point. But when you read stuff like Timplexity or there's so many great suspended animation when he's critiquing Derrida and how it relates to Keynesian. There's so much more going on with his theory. And so the point is, said all that to say, I've had this discussion on behalf of both of them. Yes, they're real philosophers, but real original theory. And because of that, that's what I want to see them to discuss. Fuck a superficial discussion. I want them to go straight to the core of the differences, the antagonisms, the contradictions, and the overlapping similarities in their original theories. And that's, again, for them, neither one of them, maybe they don't care that much. They've done their work, whatever. But what I was, and I know Slavoj cares about the point I'm going to make. Nick, if you watch this, I hope it's a gift to us it's a gift to future thinkers to do this. And I honestly believe that both Žižek's time and Land's time is in the future. I think those of us who care about both of them right now are anomalies. I think it's going to take 20, 30, 40 years for everybody to finally go, oh, fuck, these two, do you realize what they gave us in their primes? I don't think it's going to click for anybody right now. And so, I mean, we're trying to be ahead of the curve on this. But both of them are going to have very serious students in the future who are going to take their work and run with it, just like Slavoj has done with Hegel and Lacan and Marx, and just like Land has done with Nietzsche and Bataille and D&G, right? They were inspired. They were students of these guys, and they took what they learned from them and did something original with it. Future generations of thinkers are going to do the same with both of them. And so this meeting of the minds, like, it's a gift to us and it's a gift to future thinkers. And that's why we want to just facilitate a discussion. Dave, I want to go back through this list, but go ahead, chime in.
Right, and I want you to. That's where we're going. But I wanted to say a couple things about why people think this needs to be justified or why it doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of different things that go into it. For instance, we can just talk about academic gatekeeping and blah, blah, blah. But more importantly, I think that there's a lot of people, when they put politics before understanding, and when they put justice before truth, they come to the conclusion that there's like this info hazard contamination thing operative, and you cannot engage with anything that's perceived as the enemy. They don't get the point of like working through irreconcilable contradictions. And more importantly, they think that anyone that you ultimately want to expose people to is so that you'll get people to believe what those people believe, because they have this really sad idea of what people are like. They believe that people are just the products of what the gatekeepers allow them to have access to. We don't think that. Maybe we're naive Enlightenment thinkers at some basic level where we just think, yeah, no, people got to think for themselves. If you don't let them, they'll resent you. No matter what, they're going to go and like look into whatever it is that you're making taboo. You supercharge it with some kind of weird, like, ooh, it's this thing.
No, this is the psychoanalytics. Prohibition eroticizes.
Yes.
So the left doesn't get, when they prohibit Nick, they eroticize him and everybody, and they facilitate this production of desire that makes people want to investigate Land. It's like they make him erotic or seductive, or it has that quality, right?
Right.
By making him absolutely forbidden. I mean, parents who don't figure this out with their kids, it's like, no, you tell your kid they can't do X, Y, and Z, they'll fucking show you they can. And you make you it's like, this is where, for Lacan, right, prohibition it functions as in relation to objective. It functions in relation to causing desire, right? You want to cause somebody to desire something, put a strong prohibition on it that creates that sublime allure of transgression, right? And a lot of your typical leftists do this with Nick, and again, that's what makes him have this allure to a lot of young people.
And so that's the last thing I wanted to say before we get into these kinds of questions that we'll want to ask is, you brought up that Žižek had this debate with Peterson, and obviously that was really good. I mean, a ton of people came to Žižek, but also just the broader world of theory through that debate. I knew that would happen. That's why I advocated for that for 2 years before it was cool. And it wasn't cool. Everyone said we should ignore Peterson. And I said, fuck that. I dug my heel in and I forced the issue, and we forced that to happen. Now people could say, well, okay, well, you didn't organize the Žižek versus Peterson debate. Yep. But I organized the media event that catalyzed it, that provoked it, that forced the issue. And so, and I have to really advocate for myself because other people are really quick to take credit for it. First of all, because other people are really quick to take credit for it. Second of all, because I spent 2 years having people just tell me, oh, that's stupid. Why would you bother? Why would you engage with that? Well, now I don't even have to explain it. Everyone gets it, right? Everyone just gets it now. But I felt like I was getting misrecognized. I don't want to say gaslit, but it's just like the kind of, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't matter. That won't matter. That's not relevant. That I had to deal with for 2 years leading up to this is insane. Now, when we met with Žižek in 2018 in Athens, Georgia, I asked him if he would debate Jordan Peterson. And this was after I had already tried to arrange the debate between Doug Lane and Jordan Peterson for the conference. Now, the conference was still in the future, and I was still trying to find somebody to speak in lieu of a debate if Peterson backed out. Now, why? I have to pull up another meme, and that's because this is the meme that made the rounds. It was a lot more popular on Facebook, but I'm showing it to you all off of Instagram. And what it shows is Joe Rogan talking to Jordan Peterson. Now, this is exactly how it happened. Peterson goes on the Joe Rogan podcast. This was like his second time going on. And when he went on, he was talking about Marxist this, Marxist that. Rogan said, well, have you ever debated a Marxist? And he goes, no, they won't debate me. Well, the thing is because I was listening to Zero Squared at the time, which was at the time like Doug Lane's Zero Books related podcast, I knew that Doug Lane had a debate scheduled with Peterson, and then Peterson had backed out. All right. And so I put words in the mouth of Joe Rogan here saying, didn't you just cancel a debate with Douglas Lane of Zero Squared? And he goes, well, he doesn't have lots of followers. Now, I'm putting words in his mouth here, but this is actually what he said when people asked him in a Reddit AMA, Ask Me Anything. People said, hey, someone said, hey, why did you cancel that debate with Zero Squared? And his response was, well, they don't have a lot of followers. They're not very big. This is during the same year that he was going on every small podcast, every small YouTube channel. Like I was seeing him having conversations with people who only had a few hundred views on their channels, right? And so he's like, well, he doesn't have lots of followers. And then I've got Joe Rogan saying, so what about Richard Wolff, the world famous Marxist who is willing to debate you for no more than cost of travel? Now, of course, Joe Rogan did not ask him that. But I asked him that. I asked Peterson that. And Peterson's people, because I said, hey, if you're not going to have a conversation with Doug Lane, I'm having this. I'm organizing a conference at my university, and I would like to bring you to debate Doug Lane from Zero Squared. But then first of all, they didn't respond to that. And then when I saw what he said in that Reddit AMA, I was like, oh, okay, that's too small for you. And then I just did some work. I worked my magic. I went and I had conversations with a lot of people, sent a lot of emails to big Marxists, had a conversation with Slavoj Žižek in person. And at this point, when I talked to Slavoj Žižek, Peterson had already responded that if he were to have a conversation, or his people responded, I have to always clarify this. I have to step back and clarify. Peterson never communicated with me directly. It was his handlers. And his handlers said that to debate Richard Wolff, it would be $50,000 to $75,000. I had already said Richard Wolff was willing to do it at cost, which was something like $3,000 to $5,000 for the airfare, the time off from work, whatever, the hotel, the whole deal, kit and caboodle, right? So we were ready to give Peterson that much money. His people said that his speaker fee would be $50,000 to $75,000. I call that blocking and dodging an actual debate. That's what I see that as. Richard Wolff flew all the way from New York to come and speak in lieu of the debate. Because Peterson wouldn't do it, Richard Wolff came and just did it at cost. All right, but when I told Žižek and I said, hey, would you debate him? He goes, well, if he's going to get $50,000 $50,000 to $75,000, then I want $50,000 to $75,000. And I just laughed and I was like, well, there's nothing I could do for you, man. Obviously someone else was able to make it work, but they were only able to make it work after this media event because this went viral. This meme, first of all, exposed Peterson as some kind of a hypocrite debate dodger who is going on the the Rogan experience and then basically saying Marxists wouldn't debate him right after canceling a debate with Doug Lane and then blocking with this $50,000 to $75,000 fee. Okay. With all of that said, the actual video that we put up of Wolf talking about what Peterson doesn't know, what Peterson doesn't want you to know about Marx. This is the lecture he gave in lieu of a debate. This was the most epic troll thing I ever did. Now, I was experimenting with my gender. I was genderqueer. I was experimenting with all this shit, blah, blah, blah. But I knew the audience that was going to tune in. And so I dressed for the occasion, right? And I did this whole thing. I wore a dress. I had a bow in my hair. And I'd say 90% of the comments in this video are fucking hate. They're just hate. Who's this dude in a dress? Who's this dude in a dress? Oh. And the thing is I didn't introduce myself with pronouns. I didn't like do this whole SJW thing. All I did was talk about the importance of debate, the importance of people actually having conversations about the contradictions, like airing that shit. You can see me right there talk. It's currently like rolling. And so I talk probably way too long before Richard Wolff comes on, but I wanted to explain the whole situation. And if you go check it out, it's the same thing that I just explained to you here. So by the time people watched Richard Wolff critiquing Jordan Peterson, they'd already heard me laying out why we were doing this conference as a sort of media event to highlight the fact that Peterson was just like blocking and dodging debates. All right, that put pressure on him. This has over 300,000 views. It put a lot of pressure on Peterson. And so eventually he caved and he had that conversation or that debate with Žižek. And it was really embarrassing. Obviously, like he's like, so I, in preparation for this conversation, dusted off an old copy of the Communist Manifesto, which I haven't read in 20 years. And he didn't read any of Žižek's work, right? So just little things like that. I want to give you both an opportunity to say whether you think that this was a complete waste of my time. And then we can move. And then obviously, I think that this conversation we're trying to create now, this debate is probably more important than that one. But I do want to, I just wanted you all to know we've been doing this for a while. We've made this shit happen before and we're going to do it again.
Yeah, he's being, we didn't do, Dave made that happen. Me and Nance had nothing to do with it. Look, and if this does somehow happen with Land and Žižek, yes, it's been my desire for this to happen forever. But if it ends up happening, as far as the organizing goes, I do zero of that. It'll be Dave on the organizing side too. So yes, it's my idea or something or my dream discussion. But if it happens, it's all Dave making it happen.
You see this guy, everybody? This handsome, strapping young lad in the Navy, Andrew Flores, aka the Big Sig, aka the Big Signorelli, or Master Signified Bodies on Instagram. Okay, he's also one half of the Vanishing Mediators, and he's 1/4 of the Young Žižekians. And you can read his critique of therapism or therapy culture of Gabor Mate, or however you say that dude's name, and what is it? Who's the other guys? Is Peterson one of them?
Gabor Mate, is that right?
Gabor Mate, Peterson, and Stutz. You can read that in Underground Theory. Well, Andrew came to all of this stuff, including Lacan, including he got theory pilled through that debate. He came to my channel through that debate. He met Nick ultimately through that debate. Connections happen.
Nick Castellucci, not Nick Money.
Yeah, sorry everybody. Yeah, Nick Castellucci, the other guy right here, the one holding the orange juice. Yeah, no, one of the funniest motherfuckers in the theory scene, and also a beast, a theoretical beast. We love what they're doing. They go hard. Anyway, yeah, check out their channel, The Vanishing Mediators. But no, guys, there are things that come from allowing a contradiction to air. And I'm not talking about some like mudslinging bullshit where it's like our side versus your side. It's like, no, when the space is, I'm not, so like when Vosh brings somebody on to debate them, or when Destiny brings somebody on to debate them, and it's their platform, there's no MC, they've got 6 to 60,000 fucking people watching live, commenting, and they just got constant confirmation bias, and then they just dunk on these professors or whatever. That is not debate in any kind of serious sense. And what I'm talking about by letting contradictions air, that space has to be held together. It has to be open. We got to open up the pit, basically. Let's open up this pit, and then we got to hold it open so that we can actually see what's going on. And that doesn't happen when you just have some sophist fucking dunking the whole time. You got to actually have somebody who's sympathetic, not just to the thinkers, but to the audience. And that's always my thing. When I defend someone like Russell Brand or Jordan Peterson, within certain limits, my defense is always a defense of the audience, of the people who are politically disaffected, who don't trust the left, who are coming into philosophy, who are coming into being skeptical of the political establishment. I always take the side of that audience over, I'm sorry, Nance, the sneering Sam Cedar audience. I always take the side of the faux populist, not the individual, not the figurehead, but the people who are attracted to that in the first place, because those people know at some level the left doesn't have the answers. And I fundamentally believe there is not a single left political party or movement that has any realistic, plausible, or even worth striving towards long-term solutions to anything, right? That has to be done. And it's not going to come through the left. It's going to come through creating these kinds of spaces where these kinds of contradictions can get aired and fleshed out. So with that said, that opens the floor. Let's do it, man. What are the questions that you would want to ask them?
Well, okay, real quick, just because you asked us something, and then it's like if somebody's watching it, you asked us, do we think you wasted your time facilitating the debate? I do not think you wasted your time. For one, you know that I've long had a real respect for Richard Wolff. He's one of the guys who really gave me the elementary basics of Marxist theory, especially the economic side. I have a great respect for Wolff, and I think that needed to be stated. I think Peterson is bluffing. There's plenty of Marxists who are more than happy to debate Richard Wolff. Chris Catrone, you think Chris is afraid to talk Marxism with George? Chris would eat his ass alive. And so the point, and this is the issue. So one, I think it's great because whether anybody ends up being a card-carrying Marxist or not, I'm sorry. And Nick Land would tell you this. If you want to understand capitalism, you better know some fucking Marx. And Land, as a neo-reactionary, would still tell you, you better fucking know your Marx if you want to understand what's going on with capital, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that. And so, look, whether you agree or not with Marxism as like a worldview or whatever, it is absolutely ridiculous and silly to just be dismissive of Karl Marx and the Marxist tradition. It doesn't mean you have to become a dogmatic card-carrying Marxist, but there is an incredible gift that tradition has to give us when it comes to being able to think through the structures and contradictions of capitalism. All right, so it's great that the discussion in lieu of a debate happened, because it showed that you got a real serious Marxist in Richard Wolff willing to say, no, well, let's I'm not running from this. Let's have this debate, right? That was great. As far as the actual Peterson Žižek debate went, I think Žižek clearly got the upper hand in it. I think you see this naivete on Peterson's part by going, I read the Communist Manifesto, and anybody who knows Marxism is going to go, dude, you're going to have to read a lot more than the manifesto to be prepared for this talk. But it's funny, right? Like, Žižek is such a great philosopher. Like, you don't have to sit there and go, in chapter 1, when Marx is in chapter 1 of Capital, when Marx is talking about the commodity form, he knew he didn't have to do that. He made one simple point that won the debate, which is Peterson, you tell us that we need to take responsibility and clean our rooms and start with that. Are you going to say that to the people in North Korea? Right, and it's this great moment. He chose the exact right example to emphasize this dimension that Peterson doesn't want to reckon with, which is the structure of the society itself. And this comes specifically from being a Kantian, because this whole thing with the transcendental structure of our experience, trust me, like even though it doesn't seem like there's a connection to Kant, to Marx gets this whole idea of structural analysis from Kant, which is to say, you don't just take experience as a given. You have to start thinking about the very structures that condition this very experience. It's just that the experience Kant talked about was this very everyday universal type of perception. I'm viewing a lamp, right? Whereas what Marx is talking about is the kind of transcendental structure of the economy that makes the capitalist world what it is, right? And so that very sense, whenever people hear us talk about let's do a structural analysis, let's do a systematic analysis, we're getting this from Kant in a and then how Marx takes it and runs with it, right? And what Žižek did there was really defend this point where you can't just reduce everything to the free will and personal responsibility of human beings. There are structures in place that limit what people can do, what they have access to, and it's ridiculous to tell people in North Korea, oh, if your life sucks, it's just because you need to take more personal responsibility and baby step your way to a better life. There's a whole, yeah, go ahead, Nance. Yeah.
I just, on that, that's a powerful example talking about North Koreans and how like you can't tell a North Korean, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's silly. But like every day for everybody, for the most part, not, life is getting harder. Life is getting more meaningless. Things are falling away from us, and we're just getting more and more instrumentalized for everybody. And for young people, like the amount of like just desperation and like negative, pessimistic nihilism, it's astounding. Like kids these days scare me. Not all the time, not always, but there are elements of the youth of today that really do frighten me. And it has to do with like this pessimistic nihilism. And if all we ever do is just deal in memes and just like, we never get beneath the surface. We do postmodernism and we allow things to just keep accelerating and accelerating. Bad shit that is currently happening is only going to continue to get worse. There's horrible shit that happens every day outside in my fucking general area. In all of our general areas, there are horrible things that are happening, and people don't have anything. Like it's not just about like the material possessions that you own. It really is about like some spiritual life, some intellectual life, the life of the mind, whatever it is, that's falling away from us. And for people to slap a label on it and do the thing and just ultimately say, no, get back to work. Like that is responsible for so many horrifying things. And it happens here in America. It happens, I'm sure, in Canada and in Europe and in North Korea and in fucking Somalia and Libya and other places that we can't talk about right now.
Don't say the words.
And Žižek and Land have two different positions on, well, how do we make things better, in the foreseeable future? Land thinks we actually need more capital. We need capital to be more deregulated. It needs to be, freed up to do what it does. This is where he brings in mole bugs, the soft corps, the neocameralism, and all that, the patchwork. And he thinks that there should be basically state corporations or corporations that own entire cities and states. Now, we don't go for this, Nick. If you're watching, we don't really think that's the solution, but you offer a different answer to this problem than Žižek. Žižek says we need a kind of radical event. He knows which he hopes is some kind of communist event, but he also recognizes it can't be the typical actually existing socialisms of the 20th century. We tried that; those failed, and so he wants a kind of communist event. He doesn't know what that would mean. You want to accelerate capital towards the noumenal future, right? And so that right there is a point of discussion, right? You both would have two different answers to this kind of nihilistic existential malaise we're all feeling nowadays. And so that's a point of discussion that would be incredible to watch you two debate, right? Here, let me just run through this list. And I'm just going to kind of bullet point this, because if we really start talking about each one, we'll be here another hour. So, and I got to get going in a minute. But look, so here's the thing. We already said it. You guys are tapped into these two opposed philosophical traditions. So with D&G, I mean, that goes back to Spinoza. It goes back to Bergson. It goes back to Nietzsche, right? You also, with Land, you got Bataille, you got Schopenhauer. You have that line of thinking. With Žižek, we've got Hegel. We've got, and look, I think Slavoj, Dave, I want you to get to ask him about this. Slavoj was a Heideggerian before he was a Lacanian, and it's hidden in his work a lot of time, but he's very much tapped into the existentialist tradition. It's just that he goes at it from this Lacanian perspective, but it's very clear that he's tapped into these existential issues that Heidegger and Sartre and those guys were. And so you've got these two different thinkers with two different backgrounds, and yet Kant is fundamentally important for both of them. And so just that context, just the difference in their lineage, it would be incredible to see them discuss. And they have to realize that the thinkers that inspired both of them are going to continue to inspire all of us. We're all going to be wrestling with Hegel, Deleuze and Guattari, Lacan, Freud, Kant, Schopenhauer, Bataille, Nietzsche. These figures, like, we're all going to be thinking along with those thinkers. And so we would love to see what they would have to say together about that. And on that Kantian thing, the question of noumena, right? This is a core thing to watch these two discuss, because Land takes the Kantian noumenon and he doesn't do with it what Hegel did. He wants to maintain it as a radical kind of, and again, you violate the Kantian rule by calling it a substance, but it is a thing in itself. It's a positive thing in itself. It's not just a limit concept. It has its own radical alien reality to it, right? Whereas for Slavoj, he's going to be more of a Hegelian when it comes to noumena, that really noumena aren't actually like substantial things in themselves. It has to do with the limits of reason and blah, 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 blah. So it would be amazing to see these two simply discuss their opposing views on noumena. I mean, the big one, of course, is the relationship between capitalism and artificial intelligence. Now, Land is known as a thinker of AI, but Slavoj, you have to remember, he just wrote a couple years ago a book called Hegel in the Wired Brain, where he focuses on the singularity. His is more coming from the Kurzweilian concept of it, which, I mean, there's some ways you can say Kurzweil influenced Land, but Kurzweil is the most optimistic thinker when it comes to the singularity, whereas Land is going to view it as this kind of Lovecraftian, radical, nightmarish alterity, otherness, etc. But as far as how the singularity, like, would it be a kind of hive mind to start with? There's moments in Land's work where I think he's open to that being part of the emergence of the singularity. So, I mean, the fact they both have written on the singularity. Land, of course, again, that statement, capitalism is artificial intelligence. I mean, it would be really cool to see what Slavoj thinks of that. And so that's just a great thing to watch them discuss. It gets to the very heart of what is capital itself. I mean, as simple as that question is, it'd be amazing to just say, all right, you two, what is capital? And just to see them talk it out. like tell Nick, you tell Slavoy what you think it is. Slavoy, you tell Nick what you think it is, and just to see them, discuss that. I mean, look, seeing them discuss democracy would be incredible because Land is such a vehement opponent of democracy. But it's people forget, yeah, in Sublime Object of Ideology, Slavoy defends democracy, but right after that, he starts to become incredibly embarrassed that he did that, and he very much becomes anti-democratic in his own ways. But he does it on communist grounds. Land's going to do it on neo-reactionary grounds. But you have two thinkers, one left, one right, who both end up being anti-democracy. And so, again, great thing to see them discuss. Seeing them discuss the principle of equality, this idea that all humans are equal, right? How does that work? Land has really attacked that. Personally, I think Land's argument is a bit of a straw man because I don't think any liberal or leftist thinker holds the position he attributes to the left or to the liberal. Dave?
No theoretically sophisticated liberal or leftist holds his position. But guess what? The commonsensical, average, run-of-the-mill, progressive woke skull douchebag writing for Jezebel does believe it. And so what Land does in his Dark Enlightenment piece is he takes on some writer at Jezebel saying stupid fucking shit, and then he just tears it apart. And it's like, cool, man, but you're not even like, I mean, look, I'm not like a Rawlsian or like anything, like how about Rawls? I mean, outside of Rawls, I mean, like how about Locke or like, what about like Hamilton and Madison? What about just the founding fathers? Like these are the liberals who said it, who like wrote it into law, like this principle of equality. They didn't think everybody's born equal. They didn't. It's obviously like let's act as if we're all created equal, right? People act like it's the greatest hypocrisy ever.
It's a practical hyperstition in a way for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the question of race realism, this is the most controversial aspect of Land's neo-reactionary politics. He thinks that there is such thing as racial difference. It gets complicated because on the one hand, he is not going to be a biological essentialist. He critiques that position. On the other, he's going to reject social constructivism. So then you get into the whole thing of, okay, then what's the measure of racial difference? Are you really going to do what's IQ tests, or it's, the whole thing? Oh, well, there's people or groups end up with different outcomes in society. It's not based on structural restraints or systematic conditions. It's a matter of biology. To me, that comes off as an ideological obfuscation of the structure of the system. But nonetheless, this question concerning race is equally, and Slavoy's I think Slavoy is arguably the greatest thinker of the ideology of race or scapegoating that's ever lived. So that's just a great discussion to see. Both of them would have lots to say and critique about political correctness. Slavoy's long been, a critic of political correctness. Land is very vehemently against it. So to see what they would have to say on political correctness would be great. And you get into this whole culture war divide between the woke left and the alt-right, if we want to talk about it like that. I mean, they could have, they'd have a lot to say. The question concerning neo-cameralism, I know I've said this term a couple times, but it's basically Mencius Moldbug, aka Curtis Yarvin's theory of society. It's the society he would enact if he could, right? And Land in a lot of ways supports it. But my question with neo-cameralism is it really just another way of talking about neo-feudalism? And there's a lot of discussion about neo-feudalism or techno-feudalism, and Slavoy's really plugged into that. So it'd be interesting to see what happens if we view neo-cameralism via techno-feudalism, what we get out of that. Both of them have written lots on China. I mean, he wrote actual tour guide books for Shanghai. Like literal tour guide books you could buy at Barnes and Noble. He's probably the only philosopher who's ever written in that genre of a book. But both of them would have lots to say about China. I pointed this out in our first discussion with Žižek. China at one point banned sci-fi, and Land thinks that they banned it in order for basically the sake of the future, whereas Žižek thinks they banned it in order to prevent alternate futures from coming to be. So both of them,
dude,
yeah.
every time this has come up on stream, we inevitably get some China simps who are like, oh, China didn't actually ban sci-fi. Actually, it's a better place to live than the United States. Actually, you're quicker to go to the gulag in the United States. Actually, the Uyghur thing is all bullshit. Okay.
Now, I want to hear what Land has to say about it. I don't care so much about what they have to say about it.
Yeah. But I also I do want to just address those people and say, I've met plenty of Chinese people while traveling abroad, dude. I've had conversations with plenty of Chinese people. We just had a conversation with a Chinese gal in Chicago who's only been here for 1 year. She doesn't even understand my project because she's like, we already have freedom in the United States. Oh my God, it's like the freest place ever. I'm so free here compared to where she's from. And so it's just like, I've had these conversations.
She's mad about us about complaining about the USA.
Exactly. And so it's just like, if you don't care about individual rights, or if you're of a certain class to where you can kind of live above the law there, the law that most people there live under, then you're fine. But outside of that, I also don't have a problem with it. Like, I get why Professor Hans-Georg Mueller from Carefree Wandering lives in China, defends China, like, he's kind of like Nick Land in that sense. Like, he is post-happiness, post-satisfaction, post-hope, post all of these things. And he's really over like this like individualism thing. I get it. I don't have such a hard on for individualism or democracy that's the make or break issue for me. But when people come in and try to act like it's all just sunshine and rainbows, that's where I'm just like, come on, guys. You just need to have more conversations with people who are from there, who aren't these lifestyle branded tanky fucking people in weird niche corners of the internet, right? We're talking about normies from China. How is their quality of life? If they actually care about these kinds of freedoms that we take for granted in the United States. So that's not to say that we have all the freedom in the United States. I fucking hate the kind of freedom that we have in a assertive sense. Okay, I just had to get that off my chest because I've been thinking about it for a while. So there you go.
Cool. Okay, and obviously one of the things, Slavoj brought this up in our discussion, it'd be really cool to see what these two come up with on what is the meaning of intelligence, period. Like, we say that artificial intelligence is going to be artificial intelligence, but what is intelligence? I mean, look at this, look at Reza's book, Intelligence and Spirit. Oh, okay, you can't see it, it's too shiny, but the book is called Intelligence and Spirit. And spirit is this term he's getting from Hegel, which is this kind of social collective background understanding, right? This kind of trans individual understanding of things. Whereas intelligence, I mean, when we think about it, it would have to be coded. It would have to be, at least artificial intelligence would have to be coded, programmed, etc. And it doesn't seem to have the same structure to it as spirit does, or what Heidegger, right? Because I feel like it's very similar to what he would call being or background familiarity, right? And this gets to the heart of Hubert Dreyfus's critique of artificial intelligence. And so just seeing, Slavoj said, he goes, well, what does he mean by intelligence? And I think Nick would say something like, it's the ability to do something with ever greater efficiency, right? I think it's something like that, but it would be great to see him discuss that. And I mean, and then the whole thing, Land thinks that like intelligence emerges and accumulates in urban environments, megacities, population density, right? He doesn't think it emerges in rural settings, that there has to be a very strong condensation of human beings together for intelligence to accumulate, right? And so, I haven't ever heard Slavoj really talk about cities or megacities in relation to intelligence accumulation. I think that would be cool. Now, one of the big philosophical things would be getting them both to talk about time, because both of them have thought about it so much. And both of them, even though they're coming at it from different perspectives, retroactivity or retroversion is fundamental to both of their concept of time. Slavoj wants to emphasize how when we re-symbolize, which is to say reconceptualize past events, it's like we travel back in time and reconfigure them. But that is occurring at this level of language, at the level of conceptualization. Nick is going to almost push it further and act like this is happening at a physical level. It's not just what we're doing with language and conceptualization. It's as if time is circular or cybernetic for him in itself as a fanged noumena, and the future brings itself into being. It's a very interesting kind of cybernetic noumenal theory of time, and so it'd be amazing to get them to talk about that for a bit. One of the big things, of course, is the question concerning subjectivity. Slavoj is going to defend some kind of Cartesian subject, right? Although he's not going to substantialize it the way Descartes did. He's going to do the Lacanian thing. It's a negative subject. I know that's hard to wrap your head around at first, but he's going to defend subjectivity. Land, being a good old Deleuze-Guattarian, is basically going to view subjectivity as a kind of epiphenomenon that's reliant on the machinic unconscious, which is not a person. It's not a personal. It's the process of nature in its becoming, in its production of the new, right? And so Land is going to view subjectivity more as an epiphenomenon, like Deleuze did. And so subjectivity is a great topic for him to discuss, and which of course leads into the question concerning the nature of desire. And this core debate between Lacanians and Deleuze-Guattarians. Is desire lack? Is it negativity, right? Is it the missing, lost object? Is it all that objet petit a, etc.? Or is it desiring production? Is it a kind of unconscious, impersonal force that's all about the production of new connections between things, which forging these new connections creates new things? It's the motor of creativity. It's the motor of positive creativity, of the emergence of the new, right? So you have two opposed concepts of desire in Lacan and in D&G. So both of them would have lots to say on that. One of the biggest things is to say, okay, Slavoj, you're a dialectician, because you're a Hegelian. Nick, you, because you're a Deleuze-Guattarian, you're a cyberneticist. Let's get to the heart of it. Why are dialectics and cybernetics incompatible? Why can't there be a dialectical cybernetics or a cybernetic dialectics? What is this fundamental antagonism between dialectics and cybernetics? Because these are the fundamental, I don't know if you call them methods, but approaches that both of them take. And for them, they're not just methods of inquiry. They are basically the transcendental structure of the becoming of nature itself. And Land is going to vehemently oppose dialectics. Slavoj, I don't really ever see him saying much about cybernetics. And so I would kill to see him talk about that. Now, with Land, though, even being a Deleuze-Guattarian, and Deleuze was very clear on, when it came to, he was always critiquing negativity, negation. He knows that, of course, it happens at the level of logic, at the level of thought, but he doesn't think it's woven into the fabric of reality, whereas a Hegelian thinks it's the core, moving motor of reality. And so with Land, even in Thirst for Annihilation, he will critique the Hegelian concept of determinate negation, right? And he'll oppose it to what he calls ferocious negation. So I would like to hear Land go more into his concept of negation and how he, as a Deleuze-Guattarian, sought a way. And I think Thirst for Annihilation, like negativity is at the core of Land's thinking. He's all about bataille and death and all, right? So I would like to see how Land, how he would say his concept of negativity is different than Slavoj and Hegel's. Then just one of the fun things that they both are connected on, both of them drew so much on pop culture in their work. Like Slavoj is all about the Hitchcock films and the Marx Brothers and everything. And Land, I mean, you can't think Land's mature, famous essays without Blade Runner and Neuromancer and all of that. And so these were two thinkers who had no problem finding incredible inspiration from pop culture, and that puts them at odds with most of the thinkers in the 20th century philosophical tradition. And so that's a cool thing. And then finally, this is just kind of a personal thing I'd like to ask him more, but what is it like being a philosopher meme? Because you two have to live this thing that no philosophers have really ever lived the way you guys have. And so, I mean, people create memes about you two all day. What's that like? Do you like it? Do you wish it didn't happen? Or you think it's fun, etc.? So those are all the things I would love to see these guys discuss. That's it.
Never mind philosopher kings. The point is to become a philosopher meme.
Are you going to meme that?
You bet it. The Theory Underground Instagram, it's got a lot of memes. So, I mean, it's not the main thing I do with my life or my time or my energy, but every once in a while I just feel like inspired and I dump a bunch on there. And so you can always go check out those. Folks, we got to let Mikey go here in a second. I don't think we really have time to go over a whole lot of the stuff in the chat. But I want to give everyone an opportunity to say something and close, ask something, whatever. Nance, did you have anything off of all of that? Do you have any questions you want to ask? Is there any question in particular that Mikey wants to ask them that is something you've been wanting to ask them or that you're really interested to hear about?
Yeah, I think for me, the idea of intelligence, I think that's kind of key to unlocking the secrets of the current moment, is because that'll say something about what we are, as people, how we see ourselves, the human essence or whatever. So there's the question of intelligence, I think, is super important. And also the tension between cybernetics and dialectics. I think we can bring the two together. I believe we can bring the two together. But to have them kind of draw that out is just a conversation I want to listen to, because it's a conversation that we've already been having for a while now, along with all this other stuff. But yeah, like having these people who have spent lifetimes thinking and theorizing and working things out come together is only going to benefit us. And again, that's us, all of us. Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, a couple things I want to say in close is that, first of all, look, I've got my own critique of land forming. I think a lot of people have their own critiques of every philosopher forming. If you're a real thinker or you're trying to become one, right? Let's get off our high horses here. If you're trying to become a real thinker, if you're invested in that sort of 30 to 50 year kind of project, then you are ultimately thinking through thinkers and imminently critiquing them. And that is just part of the process. But it's going to be a long time before I stand in any kind of position to do any kind of real critique of someone like Land. But I think that a lot of it's going to come from Heidegger, Levinas, Illich. For me, it's going to come from Heidegger, Levinas, Illich. My defense of the human comes from Heidegger, Levinas, Illich. My critique of the general conception, I don't know if this is like the sophisticated sense for AI, but the general conception of AI is a Heidegger, Levinasian, Illichian sort of critique. And I understand that these thinkers are not, they cannot just be synthesized. Heidegger, I don't think anyone got Heidegger right. And so my Heidegger is the Heidegger I'm talking about. I am teaching my interpretation of Heidegger in this Being in Time course, Division 2 of which begins really fucking soon. So you see it's there in January. Yeah, it's coming up really fast. And so I'll actually zoom in here on the map. Y'all can see it right there. Oh shit, no, y'all can't see this actually. So hold on, let me fix that. 3, 2, 1. Now you can all see it. There we go. So this is the year at Theory Underground mapped out. Mikey is teaching a course, Introduction to Slavoj Žižek, and there's a lot of other courses being taught by a lot of people. I saw someone shouting out the autistic subject. Leon Brenner will be teaching that beginning in, when is that? Wednesdays, beginning February, going through March. But there's a lot of courses coming up. Theory Underground has only been around for a year. It has a lot of courses under its belt already, but there's a lot more coming up. Well, these are not just random courses. I did not just go and say, hey, you're a professor. Do you want to teach at my platform? I took my 10 years in the field and my questions and my overarching project, and I thought, okay, what can I not get in a doctoral program? What do I need in terms of my bibliography? What do I need in terms of my classes? This is my roadmap, and I think it will be useful to a lot of other people in different ways. Some people will want to take this course with Brenner on the autistic subject. Some people will want to take Mikey's course here, Introduction to Žižek, and you know, whatever. There's a lot of different awesome courses. Todd McGowan is teaching Seminar 11 in July. That is the fucking coolest thing. It's like Mikey's dream, and I mean, I love Mikey's Lacan. I hate everyone else's Lacan. I love Mikey's Lacan. He gets most of it from McGowan, and then he just adds some blue collar street cred to it, I guess, when he talks about it. And I vibe with that, whatever. But there's something going on there. I think it's valuable, okay? But I'm teaching Being in Time Division 2 beginning January 6th, okay? Division 1 is already up. People who sign up for Division 2 get Division 1. Being in Time is one of the most important books ever, blah, blah, blah. But critical media theory, as well as critical doxology and time energy, are two seminars that are going to be every Sunday throughout the year. Those are also going to be foundational to this critique of land. Now, it's not just a critique of land, though. Like I said, this is the prerequisite for thinking about futures in a rigorous and systematic way. So the real thing that I'm trying to show you all here is that everything culminates everything culminates right here in October at the Theory Underground conference. Now, if things are as they usually are, Mikey's not going to be able to attend in person, but he'll be able to probably do something through Zoom. There's a lot of different topics. We're going to be doing calls for proposals every month on different topics. I'll have different people on, but human futures is right there at the top of the list. People, if you want to be a part of that conversation, if you want to potentially get something published in that volume, it won't be as big as this volume. This Underground Theory volume is huge. That volume, Human Futures, can be a sexy little volume. We're only going to include a few things, and it's going to be epic. But if you want to be able to submit to it, you got to take the Intro to Land course. Get it at theory-underground.com/courses. Look for the Nick Land course. I'm about to roll the PSA in close here, and it's sort of a plug for the course site. It has a social media element, but if you're coming to the site for the social media element, you're going to be disappointed. That's the part that doesn't work. It's buggy as shit. It's not really going to be a replacement for your Facebook habit or your Reddit habit or your Instagram habit. But what matters is that all of the courses are gateways into forums, and that you can post in those forums. Like I just posted a piece on hyperstition, Santa Claus, and Amazon from work a couple days ago in the Intro to Nick Land forum. Well, that kind of thing can develop into something that could later be in this Human Futures volume. But the Human Futures volume is not going to just be these fun little essays. that volume in particular is going to really lay the groundwork for how Theory Underground is in dialogue with the CCRU, how we are the counter CCRU, or how we are a complement, or maybe how we're an expansion pack, or maybe how we're a farce. Like like first is tragedy, then is farce, right? Like maybe that's all we are. I'm open to that, right? But I mean, come on, look at us. But no, we've got a bunch of other ones here. We've got this 21st Century Council of Nicaea event where we're basically going to talk about being in this second dark age, but this dark age is different from the first one in that it's too much information instead of no information, right? Too much of a certain kind of literacy that makes people feel like they're actually literate, or like feel like they can actually read when in fact they do not know how to interpret. And so what do we do with that? And what is the doxa of our day? It's not scripture anymore. It's self-help. It's business success books. It's woke memoirs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of the courses on this on this year-long overview at Theory Underground are leading up to that conference. We're going to be in Europe end of April and through the month of May, continuing the book tour that we were doing in the United States and Canada. If you want to get in on that, or if you want to bring us to your city, get talking to us now. There's a link on the website. Just go to the events, drop down, click the thing, fill out the form, see if you can bring us. You got to fill that out by the end of this month, though, because otherwise we're just going to go with the people that are already eager to have us come to their cities. Like right now, I'm probably most excited about events in London, as well as Krakow and Katowice, Poland, because we've got groups of people who are going to want to bring us there. And then there's also really cool synergistic things that I'm doing with Philosophy Portal, probably in Brussels, Paris, and somewhere else, maybe Sweden. It's all up in the air right now. We're seeing about things. We're pinning it all down. That's my plug for all of that stuff. Just know that this is not just conversations. This is not just videos. This is not just some clout show. This is ultimately so that people like us, people like Andrew, people like Sean, like people like Anne are able to be featured in amazing works like this alongside great thinkers, and get some potential recognition. But really, more importantly, and this is what it's all about, is flesh out your thoughts in dialogue with others and let that lay the foundations for a genuine and robust intellectual milieu to grow out of what is currently only a scene, what is currently only equivalent to the new it's like seeing the goth or punk or prep or whatever kind of thing emerge and being like, oh, that's a thing, it's emerging. Yeah, okay, well, it's cool. I mean, we're cool. I think that it's really cool. As a PSA is about to go, it's like thinking's not cool anymore, Philip says, right? Well, that's why we need to do it. It is cool. Underground theory is cool, but we want to go beyond cool and actually do something, right? And so this is how. Get plugged in, get involved. Don't take the way the website currently appears or the app currently functions as the thing itself. It's only a proof of concept, and it's not a very good one. The real thing is happening in the Zoom calls for the classes, or if you're binging past classes. That's where the real shit's at. Everything else is smoke and mirrors until we have real funding. Is there anything either of you want to say on that shit before we close out?
I'm excited for the new courses, and yeah, just to reiterate, the main event is happening in the courses and in the discussions. So if there is anyone who is curious or interested or wants to be a part of it, join a course. That's where it's happening. That's where all the shit goes down. And there's an awful lot of shit going down. We're having long ass conversations. We're reading long ass books. We're doing tons of shit.
We're translating books. Fuck.
Yeah. Working on multiple translations, doing tons of shit. And it is all happening, but it's not just like thrown out there, ejaculated onto the internet. Like, these are intentional spaces. So get some intention, enter one of these spaces and come along.
All right, Mikey, you get the last word.
I'll just say, so yeah, we've done this, but I want to make a public invitation to Nick Land to come on the channel, talk to Slavoy, give us this dream discussion we'd all love to see. And, we say that as people who he has influenced, and we're gonna continue to think with his work as we develop our own ideas and our own thoughts. And it would be just a gift to everyone who does underground theory to see him and Slavoj talk. Slavoj is, you saw the clip, he's enthusiastic about it. He's agreed to do it.
In February.
All we need is for you, Nick, to say, yeah, let's have a chat. And so we're kind of, it's like balls in your court. Like, if you don't want to do this, then it's not going to happen. If you're open to it, it's that simple. And, you know, if any of you who are watching, if you guys are Landians or you're more tapped into that side of the internet, you know, we don't know what Nick knows about us, or, you know, we can speculate, but if you guys have ways to let him know about what's going on over here and that Slavoj is really up for a discussion with them, let him know. Use your contact or whatever, and you know, get him in contact with us. And because, I mean, we would just absolutely be thrilled for this hyperstition to be a fiction that makes itself real, right? So that's what we're hoping in 2024 when it comes to this potential discussion. And basically everybody wins from these two talking. They've spent a lifetime thinking about this core group of thinkers that all of us are interested in: D&G, Lacan, Hegel, Kant, etc. And so the conversation itself will be a real singularity, right? Everybody will keep going back to it for years and years and years. So all I can say is somebody who loves philosophy, I ask you, please have this discussion. Please talk to Slavoj. And I think it'll be a great time. So that's it.
We hope to see the debate in February. That's when Žižek's down to do it. So I've emailed Land a couple of times. I think he's just been away from the internet, but I'm hoping somebody who knows how to hit him up in real life can just be like, yo, it's going down in February. Like, let's do it. All right. Peace.
Thinking is super uncool, and that's why you should do it. It's just like almost anything that's like cool anymore. Yeah, it just sucks. And I think that's like what the underground movement has always been about, is just like seeing what's in the mainstream, being like, it ain't there, and kind of like cobbling something together, you know? And yeah, it's a little mismatched, but that's like its beauty.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, where workers with earbuds can find genuine liberation from necessity.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
We bring primary texts from leading lights of diverse fields to bear on topical issues and works popular in our current world. Theory Underground is a publishing house as well as lecture course and social media platform.
You've been reading Underground Theory.
Yes.
And
amazing book. I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review of books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Jesus Christ.
Seriously.
This is a little experiment in what I, David McCarricker, can pull off without relying on the academy or the algorithmic dictates of the attention economy.
Usually a good edited collection has good essays, but you only want to read a few. Every essay makes me want to read the other essays because you have a vision. Everyone that you invited for a reason. You weren't some fake publicist. It's like, how's so-and-so's a new book? Have them on your show. No, you only talk to people because you've read shit by them, that you've thought about, that you think has value, even if you disagree. So I think that's what's amazing.
I believe that I am, like so many others, pioneering a future in which educators can form learning webs that will make learning as a way of life enjoyable and emancipatory. However, before these tools become accessible, they have to be experimented with. That's why I built my own website and app using nothing more than my own saved wages 5 patrons, and some small classes of students over the last year. Of course, I also have had my wife Anne's moral support and help with accounting so that I don't get in trouble with the IRS or whatever. In less than a year, Theory Underground has already put out 8 courses, 2 books. One, my book, Time Energy, and the other, Underground Theory, which has over 30 contributors, including works written by students at Theory Underground, some of my fellow travelers, and colleagues in the broader universe of Underground Theory. Beyond the books and courses, though, you will also find interviews, reading exegetical reaction sessions, and live weekly events for working class autodidacts, independent researchers, and renegade academics. These include a variety of clubs and cohorts that meet on a weekly or monthly basis. If you want to get involved, there are 4 main subscription levels.
Think of it like a gym membership, but for your mind.
The point is to make learning, practice, and theoretical comprehension a way of life. Support at this stage of the operation is more crucial than ever because my savings were used up over the last year of getting this established. If I can triple my subscribers in the next 2 months, I can quit my gig at Amazon and focus on this work full time. All I need is a few more people at each of the levels or a couple big time patrons who just want to see it happen. Right now I am doing a patron and site subscriber drive, so excuse the commercial. But if you end up really liking what goes on at this channel, consider signing up soon. If you cannot afford it, but want to get involved with some of the stuff behind the paywall, I have made a financial aid scholarship you can sign up for here in the description. Quick side note, some people ask about the profit motive. At this point, I have not actually made a return on any of my investment in terms of the amount of time energy that I put into things, the amount of savings I've actually put into things, the opportunity cost of the work that I'm doing as opposed to the other kinds of things that I could be doing for money. But more importantly, I don't actually make enough to pay for my cost of living. The goal is to make enough for my cost of living, and then once that is achieved, everything over that amount is going to go towards expanding the operation to the point where I can hire Michael Downs, aka Mikey of The Dangerous Maybe, to be a full-time researcher and part-time teacher at Theory Underground. Alright, so with that aside, I just want to say also, if you are a worker with earbuds, what's up? I see you. I work at Amazon part-time and everything I do is for my past self who used to work there full-time. Most workers with earbuds couldn't care less about theory, but I do believe a working class intellectual revolution could grow out of the underground theory scene. My hope is that what I have built here will contribute to making the scene something more than just a scene, and you into something more than just a scene kid. We're trying to make this into a real intellectual milieu capable of leading a way forward beyond the imminent crises facing humanity. But for that, we need thinking now more than ever.
Start thinking.
I hope that you either will or have enjoyed the program, and also make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and leave this playing in the background all the time while you're doing other things.
Playing long-form Theory Underground content in the background while you do things has, in the near future, been scientifically proven to emancipate minds from the functional illiteracy imposed on workers by the structural stultification of time energy. This is achieved by reterritorializing circumspective concern.
Also, to some degree, it is for the algorithm.
Think of it like a gym membership, but for your mind!
I love you so much.